Good morning, everyone. This is Shauna, and I'm here today to do one of the homework problems that has been requested by some of the students in the classroom. This comes from section 3.2, and it's the homework problem that asks you to find the range, the variance, and the standard deviation for raw ungrouped data. This is the ungrouped example, okay? So without too much further rigmarole, let me share the screen and we'll take a look. So this, for your reference, is the homework problem that we'll be doing. We'll be doing number 4, which reads this way. The average weekly unemployment benefits in dollars for a random selection of states are listed below. Calculate the range, the variance, and the standard deviation for the data. And then the data are given. I'll read them off to you. You can pause the video and rewind if you need to hear them read out. 239, 214, 327, 416, 321, 289, 209, 356, 190, 272, 252, 272, 310, 276, and 251. Now, what I'm going to do now is bring up the calculator emulator and put the data in my calculator so that we can work with it and get the numbers. So you'll give me a moment at this time. Let's see. Just stop sharing. Yeah. Okay, so now you can see that I brought up the calculator. If you don't have any data in your calculator, it will look like this. If you're on the home screen, by the way, it might look like this, okay? When you first turn it on, depending on what screen you're on. What I did was, this is called the home screen. You might have calculations there. You might have any number of things there if you've done it before. But for the sake of example, I'm going to start on the home screen with the home screen blank. By the way, you'll be able to see my keystroke history in the corner. So if you want to go back through the keystroke history, you'll be able to look at the keystroke history as I type on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the stat key. And you'll see that number 1, edit, is already highlighted. That's what we want, because we want to put the data in the calculator. So I'm going to, you can either hit enter or hit the number 1. I'm going to hit enter here. And you'll see that I end up with my cursor in L1. So now what I'm going to do, bear with me, I'm going to put in the data that I read off to you earlier. I'm going to put all of those data into L1. So 239 is our first data. After I type, I'm going to hit enter and it appears. I'm going to repeat that for the other data. 214, 327, 416, 321, 289, 209, 356, 190, 272, 252, 272, 310, 276, and 251. Now, the first thing it tells us to do is get the range of the data. If you remember, let me show you that. So if you remember, the first part of what we were doing asks you for the range. Now, if you look back, you'll see that in the PowerPoint, let me show you that. Let me go back some slides. So the range, this is on slide number 2 of your slides for this section. The range is the highest value minus the lowest value. So you can, this data set is small enough to get the range by hand if you choose. But because I haven't shown calculator procedures as much in some of my other videos, I'm going to show some of the calculator procedures here. So I'm going to go to the calculator, and this is a calculator procedure that we used prior. I'm going to make my life a little easier at this point by sorting this list of data. So if I want to sort a list of data, assuming that I'm still on the stat edit screen, which looks like a spreadsheet, I'm going to go to stat here. And there's two sorts. There's a sort A as in apple and a sort D as in David. The sort A will sort ascending, which means it will start with the lowest and it will go to the highest number. That's what I want. The sort D goes the other way from the highest to the lowest. We want the ascending. So I'm going to go down to number 2 here. You can also use your keypad and enter the number 2 there. You'll hit enter. And then you have to tell it what list you'd like to sort. We'd like to sort L1. And if you notice, in blue above the number 1 on my keypad, yours might be yellow or orange, depending on your the color of your faceplate. But mine is blue here. So I have a blue L1 above the number 1. So I'm going to hit the second key at the top. And then I'm going to hit L1 here. Going to close the parenthesis and hit enter. It says done. Now you don't see anything because we have to go back to the list. So if you go to stat, you go back to edit so you can see it. You'll see that your list is now sorted in order. And that just makes it a little nicer because you can see the lowest is in L1, which is 190. And the highest value, I can scroll down if I want. That's 416. Okay. Now, the other thing you can do that's handy is if you're at the very top of your list and you want to get to the bottom really fast, you can hit the up arrow key. And it will take you, if you're at the very top, you hit the up arrow key, it'll take you to the bottom. Okay, take you to the bottom right away. So that's just a little extra trick. You don't have to use it, but it's there. So let me now do this. So we now know what the range is. So I'm going to take my whiteboard here. And for the first part of this, we know that the range is equal to 416, which we know that it's the highest value. Let me write that, highest value minus the lowest value. So what we have in this case is we have R equals the highest value, which we said was 416 minus 190. So you can put that in your calculator. I'll do that for you here. New share. So this is your calculator. Now, when you want to calculate and you want to keep your data, I'm going to get out of this screen without erasing anything. I'm going to go to second. Quit will just get me out, and I'll take 416 and subtract 190 from it. Again, hit enter and you get 226. That's our range. Okay, that's our range. So now we're going to put that in with our whiteboard here. So we have this range now is, let me scroll over. So this range R is 416 minus 190, and that is 226. And so that's our range for this problem. Okay. The next thing it asks us to do is the standard deviation and the variance. Okay. Now, the order in which you do this depends on how you do it. Okay. You can check your work, but with the calculator. So let's go back to that and I'll show you something here. So let me share the calculator at this time. Yeah. So if we go back to our stat numbers here, if you want to find your numbers, you can go to stat, right arrow to count. Right now we're on the edit menu because it's highlighted. If I right arrow key to count, on this list, I have two options, one var stat, two var stat. We'll learn about some of the others later. Right now, I'm interested in one var stat. That means one variable statistics. Go to one var stat and specify the list that you want. I'd like L1. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Second, number one, leave your frequency list blank if it's ungrouped data, which for us here it is. Calculate that. It will show you on this list some things that you need. This is the sum of X, 4194, the sum of X squared, and SX. We're interested in SX. This SX is our standard deviation. So our standard deviation here is 59.813. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment and write this down next to me, 59.81375,857. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to show you, let me go back to the slide and show you something. If you go to the slides here, okay, she goes through what the standard deviation is, what the symbols are, okay. This is the version if you were doing it by hand. If you're doing it by hand, it's easier to calculate the variance first because the variance and the standard deviation have the same formula. It's just that the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So if you're doing that, keep that in mind. And she gives you an example here, okay? And that's why I'm going to do that for you here now. She gives you a set of raw data. Here's the formula for the variance. N is how many data values you have in your list. This first term, the sum of x squared, is the sum of your squares, not the sum of your actual original data, but the sum of that data, the sum of the squares of that data. This second term after the minus, don't confuse them. See, the square is in a different location. This second term is the sum of all of your data, that number squared. N is how many data there are. So that's if you're doing it by hand, okay? And she goes through it, and I'll do that for you. The sample standard deviation using the calculator, I've shown you. I'll show you that again when we finish, but enter the raw data into L1, press stat to get the menu, move the cursor to calc, and so on, okay? And choose SX, all right? For the grouped data, which is not this problem, you'll always use a calculator for that. So let me finish this here. Let me finish our problem that we're working on here. So here you want to take note of, if regardless of how you're doing it, if you're doing it with the calculator, your SX would be 59.8, okay? And then you would square that because this is the standard deviation to get the variance. But if you're doing it by hand, you want to take note of the sum of X, which is the second number on the list, 4,194, and the sum of the X squared, which is 1,222,730. We're going to need both of those. Okay. If you want to see, because I know some of you did the squares, okay, you can square every number individually and put it, I would suggest, in a second list. You can square every number individually if you want, but what I suggest you do is let the calculator do that for you. So you're going to go up to, you're going to start a new list here. You're going to go up to the label, up to L2. Notice I hit the up arrow key. You're going to then hit enter, and your cursor will drop to the bottom of the screen where you have it right after the equal sign. In L2, we would like to square what's in L1. So we're going to tell it square what is in L1. So remember, to get L1, we go second, and then the number 1, there's L1. Now you have a couple of ways to square on your calculator. You can use the little, we call this the caret symbol, this little triangle that looks like it's open at the bottom. You can use that, or you can just use the, oops, excuse me, you can use the x squared key. Okay, I'm going to use the x squared key. So L1 squared, however you choose to do it. Hit enter, and it gives you all of your squares. Okay, we already have the sum because we saw that from the sum of L1, but there's all your squares for those of you who did it individually by hand. You can see those squares that I got. Okay, there they are. I'm scrolling through for you one more time so you can verify your values. You can feel free to stop or pause the video as you need to, but these are the numbers that you need. Now, as I indicated, the formula for that, it's easier to start with the variance. So let me put that on the whiteboard. So the second part of this, as I said, is to do the variance next. Okay, so the variance is our next piece of this. And I'm going to write the formula. So S squared is equal to the formula that you've been given here is N times the sum, this funny Greek letter. Sometimes we use sigma. That's the name of it. That's a letter from the Greek alphabet. Sigma x squared, or the sum of x squared. And I'll, whoops. Hello, let me undo that mark and undo the other mark here. All right, so I'm going to take that and multiply. My apologies. Give me a minute here. So this is going to be that. Now we're going to subtract the sum of x quantity squared. So let's see what this is talking about. And we're going to divide that by n times n minus 1. So let's refresh our memory for some of these numbers. Some of you who may be following along, maybe you wrote them down, but if you didn't, let's take the advantage of writing that now. So let me come back to the calculator and let's look. So we have 15 data. Let me go back to stat. Let me go to calc and go to one var stat for you one more time so we can see it. Here's my L1. That's what I want. Sum of x, you need this number, write it down, 4,194. Sum of x squared, 1,222,730. And n is 15. Okay. We need those three. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard now and make a note to myself that I'm going to make a note on the side here. The sum of X is equal to 4,194. The sum of X squared, sorry, okay. The sum of X squared is 1,222,000 and 730. 730. Okay, that's our X squared, and our N is 15. So when you do this, you get 15 here. Okay. Now, when you write this out, you get variance is equal to, so the top of this, the numerator will be 15 times the sum of X squared. That is your 1,222,730. Okay, so it's 1,222,730. And then we're going to subtract the sum of X, which is our 4,194. So we're going to have 4,194, and we're going to square that number. Let me make our text box wider here. Okay. So now I'm going to square just that, okay? And I'm going to divide all of this by, remember, N is 15. So we have 15 times 15 minus 1. And if I show you that, I'm going to show you this on the calculator for those of you who may have trouble entering it, but you should get 3,577.685,714. If you use all of the decimals. If you round to one decimal, this will be 3,577.7. We'll come back to that. That's our variance. Okay. To get your standard deviation, you'll take the square root of this, but let me show you in the calculator what this looks like. So I'm going to share the screen one more time here. And we're going to quit from here. So I'm going to quit from this screen here. I get a nice clean screen. That's not absolutely necessary. You could have typed below that, but it's just easier to see it. So I'm going to enter the calculation that you saw on the whiteboard, okay? So I'm going to start with a parenthesis. That tells me that I need my numerator, okay? So I have 15 times, and I can use parenthesis if I want to. So let me, so that it looks like the other one does. 15, and I have 1, 2, 2, 2, there, 2, 3 2s, okay. 7, 3, 0. And then I'm going to subtract, close parent, subtract. So I'm going to use, be sure you use the large minus and not the toggle minus. Here, be sure you use the large minus. And this is 4,194. Close parenthesis. And you can square. This time I'll show you the caret just to show you what happens. I have the caret and I have the 2. Okay. Now I want to make sure that I close this because this is the numerator. So I'm going to close my parenthesis there. That's the whole numerator. The bottom number, I'm going to divide this by 15. Now you can write 15 minus 1 if you want. You can write 15 minus 1. You could also write 14 here. That's perfectly fine. I think you're more than capable of taking a number off in your head. But again, close the denominator. So let's see. And as long as I've entered everything correctly, there it is, 3,577.685714. That is the variance. To get the standard deviation, you take the square root of this answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to say square root is on top of the square key. It's in blue. So you're going to go second square root. You're more than welcome to put this in the retype this if you would like. I'll do that for you here. 3577.685714. Oops. 714. And you end up with 59.8137. Now, the other way, the other thing you can do is if you go back to this and you clear, is that I want to show you something. If I clear this, so I just have this answer, right? So I have my answer here, right? The other thing you can do, if you don't want to retype that all in, you can go second square root. You look at the square root, and you'd like the square root of this answer that's on the screen. So you can go, you can, on some calculators, you can arrow up and paste it in. Or you can also use second square root. Oops, I already had it, sorry. But I would use second square root, and then I can use second answer ANS, which is next to the equal sign, okay? And that will give me the same thing. So a couple of calculator tricks for you there, but I hope that this helps you. So your Standard deviation is 3,577.7 if you were to round it. Your standard deviation is 59.8. Okay, and just to show you that if you scroll down, here's the homework page. If you scroll down to the answer section here, the mean was, this was number 4 we were doing. So 226, 3,577.7 and 59.8. Okay, so I hope that that explanation and those computer keystroke calculator keystrokes will be beneficial for you, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.